Hello and welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is the Pittsburgh fanatic.
Phil me and Parrish.
That's him. I guess he didn't know this was the musical episode. I didn't know either until I started singing. Because, hey, I love to sing.
Me, me, me.
Me, me, me. Me, my mo. A little piece of Poland, a little piece of France. Because all I want is peace. Anyways, that's a little shout out to the great Mel Brooks, who is a funny man. You should watch all of his movies, because even his bad movies are good movies, and his good movies are even better. That is from To Be or Not to Be, which is actually his remake of a classic. Oh man, what's his name? Benny, guy with the violin. Benny, Jack Benny. His Jack Benny film, classic Jack Benny film called To Be or Not to Be. Actually, one of the great classic early '40s comedic takes on Adolf Hitler, and Mel Brooks went and did his own version of it, and I actually think Mel Brooks's is better than the original Jack Benny version. Now, people are going to call me a heretic for saying that. I don't know, but I always
find that weird. Like humorous takes on Hitler. It's it's just like even just like Hogan's Heroes back in the day. It's like what TV executive was like, hey, I know it would be a funny setting for a comedy and into an internment camp. Hey.
Well, actually, that was a POW camp, not an internment camp or even a concentration camp.
I was searching for the word. Yes, POW camp, but it's just like.
Look, how many times do you see comedy about the devil?
True.
And is not the devil himself a pretty evil cat?
But I mean, there are certain atheists or anyone else who could be like, oh, well, the devil's not even real. I mean, we have concrete proof.
Well, yeah, I know that, but hey, I'm a devout Catholic. I'm a devout Catholic, and devil humor is like my favorite kind of humor. I'm going to be honest with you. I love devil humor. I love the idea that, you're going to go, oh, hey, I'm the devil. I actually, one of my great comic bits was me being the devil. And I always played the devil as a very sad sack. Because, the thing about the devil is he's very full of himself because he is the personification of evil. And yet his power is so very limited by your own acceptance of him as the personification of evil. So that if you reject the devil, you really have no power. He has no power over you. But yet he's still very, very devilly,
Plus, you can make the argument that the devil hasn't killed anyone in your family. There are people out there who could say their family members were killed by Nazis.
Well, certainly. But there are Nazis that can say their family members were killed by Americans. So,
True.
Oh, goodness. No. And it's not really the point of Hitler humor. If you're going to do Hitler humor, is that it has to be humor that centers around the ridiculousness of affinity for Hitler. And one of the things that is central to the humor of To Be or Not to Be is this idea that, everyone is so afraid to be caught out in this fascistic state, that no one wants to be seen as being in any way disloyal because, that will actually get you killed. And it is ridiculous to think that, yes, at points in human history, telling the joke about, Hitler will be a pickle because he's such a sauerkraut is enough to get you murdered in Nazi Germany, for real. Now, I'm going to give you, this was actually something I was thinking about. You know what I find fascinating about Donald Trump?
Oh boy, here we go. What?
No, this is actually almost a positive for Donald Trump.
Okay.
Do you know what Donald Trump's the inspiration of his character is? It's a very 80s thing. If you ever saw the film, if you ever saw the film Easy Money. Easy Money is a great film. It's a Rodney Dangerfield film. And it's about, a crass, plain spoken guy who has to who gets forced into his mother. Essentially, the plotline is his mother in law dies, leaves her fortune to Rodney Dangerfield's wife on the condition that he become essentially a man who can lead the family. He can become a respectable man. And it's all about how his, blue collar crassness, it's your classic 80s slobs versus snobs comedy in which the slob becomes the snob and then all the snobs realize that the slob was right all along. And this is a very informative understanding of the psychology of modern America, of this 80s slobs versus snobs conceit that was the crux of our cinematic life when we Gen Xers were children. That as we grew up in the 80s, we saw this constantly played out, the slobs versus the snobs. Now, the funny thing is, of course, is that Donald Trump is no slob. He's a snob who is aping slob behavior. He's aping that, essentially what Rodney Dangerfield did in creating his persona of the man who gets no respect. He is aping what is perceived as that blue collar callousness, much like Rodney Dangerfield, for whom his man who gets no respect character is essentially what's the word I'm looking for? An aping of blue collar crassness. But of course, as young people in the 80s, we were indoctrinated to see that was realism, that was something important, that acceptance of that crassness, that acceptance of that blue collar reality was truth. Now, Donald Trump is in no way a blue collar guy. He's just crass. He's actually just a crass, Plutarch. Yeah, that's the right word.
Well, you know what? I think it's possible Donald Trump could bring us world peace. Now, hold on.
Okay, I'm waiting for it, man.
Well, the old theory, like if the world had a common threat, like, aliens from, invading from space or something, that the governments and the populations of the world would have to band together to fight this
yeah. So what you're saying,
common threat or menace.
So you're saying that Donald Trump is an alien set to unite all the.
Guess that sounds better than threat. Okay,
yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The only problem with that theory is that I currently live in the threat matrix. I currently live in America. The whole world united against America and finding peace and harmony is a great idea, unless you happen to live in America. Sort of like the whole world uniting against Germany in World War II. Totally worth it. But it's also kind of this thing where you go, oh, dude, if you were living in Germany, that's a real bad place to be living at that moment, Yeah, no, I don't think. Well, first off, yeah, I don't know. I don't, and like I said, I'm not really trying to be derisive of Trump. Although I wish I have been. I'm not trying to be. What I'm actually trying to say is that, it's a very informative quality to the Trump presidency that, so many young people were raised on this slobs versus snobs dynamic, where we were trained to see the people basically every slobs versus snobs story has this common theme, which is that the common people have been allowed into the rarefied world of the elites. And, because we are a language-centric society, we do tend to gravitate onto certain qualities as thinking that means authenticity. So, for a lot of people, it doesn't matter that Bill Clinton was actually a blue collar guy from a blue collar world, that he grew up and learned to speak properly and went to an elite school meant that he's not to be trusted. Whereas other people who grew up in the elite society went to the same dang elite schools, but speak like they got a third grade education, those are the guys you want to talk to.
Well, Trump ran on this platform of I'm not a politician, all
Yeah.
politicians are corrupt, vote for me, I'm the
Every
honest.
politician runs on the platform
I
of I'm not a politician. I don't know the
I
last politician to say I'm a politician and
I
I'll
mean
get things done.
he ran as the everyman, which is kind of funny since he's well, who knows how much money he has, but
Well, he's
he's a
gone
rich guy.
bankrupt more times than me, so I'll give him that. He is he's got 4 to my 2, so I'm twice as good a businessman as Donald Trump, is what I can always say.
Hey Charlie, what's going on in the world of comics?
Okay, let's talk about, I actually wasn't trying to get political. I actually just came across this interesting idea of tying into comedic. Dude, you wanted a one-stop shop for everything podcast, man. And you've frozen again on me. Oh boy, I'm gonna lose you again, I'm sure. Anyway, so should I just keep on talking, Phil? It still says I'm live, so I'm going to assume we're still live. Hopefully, we're still doing it live. So in comic books, and more to the point, in Agents of Shield news, because they are coming back, there is talk about the return of the Kree, and I think this is very important, Phil. I know you can't hear me right now, but I think this is very important. The return of the Kree in season 5. Expressly because Captain Marvel is coming soon too. And I think that as the Marvel Cinematic Universe embraces more and more the idea of the Kree, I think they're going to find themselves in a spot where you can't differentiate the two worlds. You can't differentiate, the movie universe from the TV universe, because they both have to have these Kree qualities. Because if you're going to have Captain Marvel be your Superman, you're going to have to deal with the fact that Captain Marvel is Kree. I mean, the only way they can get around that is if they decide that Captain Marvel was a Skrull the whole time. And who knows, maybe they'll go that route, Phil. I don't know. But it's an option. It's an option. The thing about the Kree is that we have not gotten real blue Kree yet, except for the home base protocol. And we do know that the home base protocol is going to come back because, as I've said, it has to come into play with Peggy Carter. It has to come into play in Captain Marvel, and it will probably come into play with Sony and Principal Howler, who is clearly one of the Howling Commandos and is still young and beautiful, just like me. Trying to avoid dead air here, Phil. I'm hoping you come back. Oh, wait. Here he's back. And he's back from outer space. He just came here to find us there with that sad look upon our face. Hey, Phil. So while you were gone, I filled time discussing.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I figured you said, well, you aren't live the whole time. And I looked in the corner and says, yeah, it turns out I'm live the whole time. Hope I didn't say anything untoward the last time. Yeah, we might have to do a little editing on this for the actual podcast, but we'll have to see.
I apologize to you and the audience. I don't know what's going on. It was storming here before, but I mean, there's nothing going on now, so I don't know why I keep losing my connection.
It's probably just latent electromagnetic folderol. Anyway, so here's what I was saying, Phil. So, as you know, the Kree are coming back into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes.
And that is an important thing expressly because Captain Marvel is coming. And basically you have two options here. One is that with the arrival of Captain Marvel, with the return of the Kree, it is going to show the reconnection of the cinematic and television universes. It is going to show them essentially sharing the sandbox and building it out and playing together because, of course, the mouse says they must. The mouse says, look, you two, I don't know who you guys think you are, but you're just a couple of ants in our big old pile of honey, and you better play nice, Feige and Loeb. You know, you better play nice because we don't pay you because it would not kill us to fire one or both of you to get one guy playing nice with himself, you know? So
well, yeah, I saw that article today, and I was like, "Oh, is Charlie's theory coming to pass?" You know, you theorized about the Kree having a big, you know, role in Captain Marvel, and you know, so and if we get Peggy Carter in Captain Marvel, maybe she'll show up here in some form, even if it's a flashback.
Well, no, she's going to be there because she's still head of because she was head of Shield in the 80s, and we see that she was still around by late teens. You know, when did Winter Soldier come out? I want to say it was a double-digit year.
Oh yeah.
Soldier. There we go. Winter Soldier came out 2014. So we're talking 24 years earlier. So she could very well have still been head of S.H.I.E.L.D. She could still have been S.H.I.E.L.D. director. She's in her, you know, she's that grizzled old lady, but she's like, I don't take nothing from no Pims or no Furies or no Starks.
And so I think that's what I think I said before. She could still be. I mean, she could have faked her death. She could still be around somewhere as an LMD or something.
Well, like I said, that's where the home-based protocol comes in, and we do see Principal Howler, which is what I'm calling him now. Pete's principal, you know, as young and beautiful as ever, just like me. You know, in his high school, and I think that's. You know, I think that, you know, you can say, oh, grandson, grandkid, yada, yada, yada. And I'm saying, no, that's the same guy. Because it's not like they had, you know, the actor who played Triplet come back to play Triplet's grandfather in The Howlers. At least I don't think they did. When they did The Howlers in, when they did the flashback with Peggy Carter and The Howlers, that was like when they introduced the Black Widows Russian training camps. That was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they kept on doing the flashbacks. Yeah. You know, but they didn't have the actor who played Triplet be his grandfather. You know, because that makes sense because you don't actually look exactly like your grandfather. You may look a lot like your grandfather, but no one looks exactly like his grandfather. You know, Principal Lee looks exactly like his quote unquote grandfather. And he's got way too much of his grandfather's memorabilia all throughout his office for a high school principal. You know, I'm just saying he's got like medals and awards. And it's like, yeah, you know, for the third generation trying to claim that much cachet, I don't buy it. I say that's the original Howler in Pete's high school. And I predicted that years ago. They haven't confirmed it yet, but we all know that's the case. We all know that is Super Science High. That is, you know, probably something established by. Oh, here's what you're gonna see, man. Okay, when you get to Captain Marvel, you're gonna see it's gonna be a backdoor Peggy Carter movie. Here's my prediction for Captain Marvel. It's gonna be a backdoor Peggy Carter movie, and it's gonna be about her establishing Super Science High. Man, you know, I got to go back and watch Homecoming now because I got to wonder, was Zola ever on any of the walls in their Wall of Science there? You know, they had Banner and they had, you know, Howard Stark and they had Tony Stark. They probably had Yinsen Ho in there too somewhere. And I wonder if they had Zola. He was a great scientist, you know, Nazi scientist, but still a scientist, you know.
That's why I'm wondering if Peggy Carter survived somehow, was digitized consciousness or an LMD or something. Because I mean, look at Zola.
Yeah, well, like I said, my big prediction is that you're gonna find out that she's got like 40 LMDs.
The old Nick Fury gag from the comics. All these.
Yeah, they're gonna make Peggy Carter be Nick Fury. And you're gonna see Peggy Carter like I don't know. I so want that. I so want Haley Atwell, you know, being the man on the wall.
I was gonna say they already did it with Sam Jackson. I was gonna say, what if she came back with like an eye patch and
no, you don't have to have an eye patch. No, you don't even have to smoke. You know, she just has to be there and be a tough old broad. You know, and that's actually one of these things I was actually going to think about. You know, it's interesting that Wonder Woman is set in the 80s. Captain Marvel is set in the 90s. Both of these films are set pre heroic universes
So
to
are
where
they?
they're kind of.
So are
I'm
they
sorry.
building? I was gonna say, are they building somewhat? Well, Marvel. I mean, they have Captain America, but are they building somewhat of their early foundations movie wise on their female
Well, what
heroes?
they're trying to create is this understanding that superhumans had always been around, but that there are agencies and activities that kept them under wraps.
Mm-hmm.
And, the difference between, you know, the world of so essentially here's what I imagine. In 80s Wonder Woman, you're going to get your Etta Candy as your Nick Fury. Like I said, possibly tootling a young Amanda Waller in the ways of Super Spider, you know? Um, and it is going to be about keeping the wraps on people like Diana, because there are lots and lots of people like Diana. And whether or not that's for the good or the bad, you keep it on the wraps. And it was only when Superman shows up, because Superman is more powerful than you, and also, you know, unaware that he had to keep quiet. And you can compare this to the Tony Stark revelation in Iron Man, where, Phil Coulson comes in, he's got a standard shield protocol. We're going to create a backstory, we're going to create this, we're going to do that. We're going to not let people realize what exactly they've been sold. And then Tony Stark says, no, I'm a billionaire and I fly around in armor and I really am not afraid of shield.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say I'm Iron Man.
But the most important part of the Wonder Woman 2 being set in the 1980s,
mm-hmm.
are we going to get a lot of mentions of, or everyone going to be calling her Princess Diana?
No, that'd be ridiculous. That would be like a Gigantopithecus. Totally ridiculous. No, I mean, they may throw out some Princess Diana jokes, dude. I just hope
maybe
they
one
don't.
Real quick one,
Yeah, well, they could do a whole who's on first, where it's like Princess Diana, Prince, Princess Diana. You could do it. You could get away with it. But no, it's a fun gag. But honestly, what I want is Etta Candy as the founder of Spiral or something. In the same way that you have a Peggy. I want Etta Candy to be DC's Peggy Carter. I want her to be the super spy thrust of their organization. And I want to see in both Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel the idea that heroes have always been around, but that heroes were kept quiet because people feared what people might not understand. And, that's what you get with these superheroes. I mean, you think about this idea that Batman has clearly, he's going to say Batfleck has probably been operational since at least the late 90s. So you may get like young Bruce Wayne. Oh, wouldn't it be great if they got the actual actor from Gotham to come and be young Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
Says, meeting Diana Prince one day at some charity function. And they probably have to use whoever they're currently using Alfred as in the movies, but I do like our Gotham Alfred. But that would be nice. They won't do it. Yeah, they won't do anything.
That just strikes me as weird, though. If like Batman's been operating a lot longer than like Superman or the rest, because it's just makes him. I always think of them as contemporaries. I mean, it's different with Wonder Woman; she's immortal, so I mean, she could have been operating for how long, and she doesn't age.
So what you could have is so here's what you could have with Wonder Woman in the 80s is she's saving young Bruce Wayne. So it's her and young Bruce Wayne sort of not realizing who he's talking to and that's sort of maybe his inspiration. That would be kind of a neat kind of story. You have Wonder Woman and Batman and, but he's like, I've dealt with this pain of my parents' loss and I've tried to become a better warrior. And you even have maybe Wonder Woman saying, the warrior's way is not this and that and the other and yada, yada. And you have this nice philosophical debate between the two. And then at the very end, you get him saying to her, I have come to understand criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. I realize if I must defeat them, I must become a bat.
or you get me thinking with all this Bruce Wayne talks. At first, I was like, well, it's the '80s, and what if Wonder Woman runs into Thomas Wayne? But
Mhm.
did you see the news? What was it, this week or last week? I guess they're saying the Flash movie now. I mean, they keep losing directors, and I don't know what else they're starting
Yeah.
over. But I guess now they're saying the first Flash movie is already going to be Flashpoint. And
Okay.
if they go with the comic, because I mean, I guess just like with X Men: Days of Future
Didn't we
Past,
just do Flashpoint in the TV series?
yeah, but it was like one episode, and it wasn't like the comics. You didn't have Batman or everyone else. Here,
I
you can
know.
reboot and get rid of whatever you want to after this movie. But if you do just like they did in the
They're not
comics,
getting rid of Ben Affleck, you know?
no, I'm not saying they can get rid of them, but any plot point, you can get rid of Martha. Why'd you say that name? You can get rid of all that.
Well,
Um,
that wasn't a horrible plot. Here's the thing. The thing about Martha, it's
but you
not
can
that
clean
it
it up.
was well, yeah. I mean, it's not that it's not that it's interesting that they had a connection on the fact that their mothers shared a name. Oh, by the way, great gag in Avengers this week. I did read Mighty Avengers or whatever it's called right now, where Deadpool says, it's just like that movie, Kramer versus Kramer. If only they'd both known someone named Martha. Yeah, that's classic. That was
Say
actually a
it to
pretty good
Otto.
comic book, especially
Mhm.
when Taskmaster totally. I don't even know where he's getting his orders from. Where he's just like, yeah, well, they're totally monstrous aliens. Let's kill them all.
See, I'm kind of hopping somewhat on your bandwagon here. I mean, instead of a Deadpool Spider-Man book, I think they need a Deadpool Otto Octavius book.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
I don't think. See, here's the problem with Deadpool. I don't think he. I think he's always gonna have a problem in being part of. Here's the thing: he doesn't want to be a sidekick,
Mm-hmm.
but his persona screams sidekick. You know, his
Like,
witty banter.
I don't know. I mean, I like the Spider-Man Deadpool book, but it's like they're kind of both jokesters. I think you need Deadpool playing off like a straight man. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you maybe somehow after Secret Empire, Deadpool thinks, oh, Otto Octavius can protect us or save us, and he's kind of like his bodyguard or whatever, and it just
I actually could imagine a nice fast friendship between Deadpool and because of course you can see they start off so antagonistic.
yes.
And you could imagine him, you could just see, Otto, you're like my friend, you're like my best friend, Spider-Man, but just a little bit cooler. And that's just going to make Otto feel like, yes, I am cooler than Spider-Man. Thank you for noticing.
I mean, Otto just sees Deadpool as a tool, and Deadpool's like, haha, tool.
Yeah, he's such a tool.
But anyway, no, what I was talking about Flashpoint was you can do it in the movie, you can do it more like the comics, Aquaman and Wonder Woman are at war and it's destroying the world. But most importantly, you had Thomas Wayne as Batman, and who was Thomas Wayne in the flashbacks at the beginning of Batman v Superman? Jeffrey Dean Morgan. We get a Jeffrey Dean
yes.
Morgan Batman for one movie.
Okay. I mean, I'll go
I mean,
along.
the comedian. Think of it. The comedian is Batman.
I'm not going to fight it. I'm not saying I'm going to fight it. I'm just saying, like you always tell me, they're not that creative.
They don't have to be. All they do is follow the comics.
Yeah, well, and they're neither that creative nor that inspired. What I will say is, here's the thing. I think that something like Flashpoint, it's sort of like why doing Batman v Superman was a mistake. Because Batman v Superman had, when you had the Dark Knight Returns, and you have that Batman versus Superman first battle,
Mm-hmm.
it is built upon the foundation of the relationship of Batman and Superman. It's not two guys meeting in an alley and duking it out. It's actually about two lifelong friends who have found themselves growing apart in their perspectives.
Well,
And
exactly.
that's
That's what
what
I was going
makes
to
it a
say.
good story.
Yeah, it should have been. It's at the end of their career, at least at the end of Batman's career, not when they
Yeah.
first meet. And they tried to shove too much in there. You got elements of the
I
Dark
know.
Knight Returns.
But what I'm
You
going
had
to
like the death of Superman, and
exactly. And the thing about if you do Flashpoint as your first Flash story, you're basically saying, okay, Flashpoint is cool because it's an Elseworld based on all of these very interesting what ifs. If one thing changes, how everything else changes. They don't have enough canon in the movies to do that.
unless you make it very Barry centric, because he creates Flashpoint in the first place, tries to go back in time and save his mother. But
Yeah,
maybe maybe they're playing off the thing that,
but
like,
that, but then we
if you're
just
going
saw
to see
that
a
in the
Flash
TV show.
movie, yeah, if you're going to see a Flash movie, you've probably seen the TV show.
Not necessarily. I mean, yeah,
That's true, but yeah,
the reality is that there are people who go see these movies who are not gigantic nerds, who are
that's
just going to
true.
see the movie because, oh, this is supposed to be a good movie, and so when
But
you
the
deal
odds
with a
are, if you're going
story
to see the
that's,
movie, you've read the comics or seen the TV show,
it's
or you
like
know somebody.
it's like this: if you do a story that is based on massive canon, which both Batman v Superman and Flashpoint are, and then you want to sort of play it. So for example, when you did, you do Avengers: Age of Ultron or Captain America: Civil War. Yes, those original stories were based centrally on a lot of canon, but the actual stories they told didn't require that. And that's okay. So they could do a Flashpoint story that doesn't require that massive canonical knowledge, but then you're just doing the Flash TV show Flashpoint, where, oh, what if things change slightly and things were a little weird within this group that we know? And for what it's worth, the value of the TV show's Flashpoint episode was that we had already established canonical understandings of all these characters.
Well, yeah, I just think, again, here you can do more like the closer to the comics, because you have more characters to play with. And the TV show, they just had, the
But
TV
you don't.
centric characters.
But my point is that the characters in the TV show you had spent like what 2 years with already.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get to the Flash movie, we've had basically Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, and then Justice League.
Well, it's just like they're like, oh, this, the movie's gonna be way different than the TV show. That's what, I don't know if that's part of the
And yet they
reason they're like,
decided to take a direct plot from the TV show.
Yeah, but early scripts for this movie were looking like the first season of The Flash. They're like, oh, it's gonna be totally different. But meanwhile, it's like Bart Thawne in a wheelchair, and Iris and this and that, and then people were like, well, how is this different from the TV show? So again, yeah, they did Flashpoint already, but maybe they mix in some.
No, I mean, like I said, I'm just saying. We won't know till it's done. It just seems like, I think one of the problems with these DC films is that we keep on getting back into this idea that they don't have a plan yet. And they keep on changing their plans halfway, because it's like their first plan it wasn't even Snyder. I don't even know if Snyder wanted to do Man of Steel dark and brooding. I think that maybe he was told, hey, Batman's doing, Dark Knight's doing real well right now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do that. The Nolan verse is great. So we want to kind of figure out how you can make a Superman in a Nolan verse.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we said over and over, I mean, DC's trying to play catch up with Marvel. They want to hit those high points. Like we were saying, they did elements of Dark Knight Returns. They did Death of Superman already, and Batman v Superman. They crammed so much. Yeah. Death of Superman shouldn't have happened until like the end of Justice League.
I know, but you know what?
Marvel took their time. They they started with Iron Man. They built their foundation. They built up to those big, events. DC wants to jump right into their Infinity War, and it's like, you can't do that.
Exactly. You know what? The first Marvel story that was like tangentially related to the comic books was Winter Soldier, because that predates Age of Ultron. So you get Winter Soldier even before you get Age of Ultron. The first one to just do a direct lift of a title was Age of Ultron, and it's still a very different Age of Ultron than the Age of Ultron you got. And then the closest they've got to the comic books so far is Civil War, where it is a fight over superhero registration between Tony Stark and Captain America. But at that point, we had so much established canon to build on.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have stories that people already love. And that's the thing. If people like Iron Man, they're going to come see another Iron Man film. It doesn't have to be Iron Man's, it doesn't have to be Armor Wars. You don't have to go right from Iron Man 1 to Armor Wars. Or you don't have to make Iron Man 1 be Armor Wars. Iron Man 1, Armor Wars.
Well, I mean, yeah, look how many
That's
movies.
the only Tony Stark-centric plotline I know of,
before they even got to the first Avengers, I mean, you had what, two Iron Man movies, you had Thor, you had Captain America the First Avenger.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they even had that Incredible Hulk movie. That's why I'm like, why are they jumping the Justice League before the rest of them get their solo movies?
The thing is, and I said this from the start, had they wanted to do that, they should have started with Justice League. And you open up in a world of the Justice League. And then you could do like Identity Crisis. Or you do Batman's Got a File on Everybody. You do one of those stories where you have that we live in a world with a Justice League, and now we're going to dismantle the Justice League.
Exactly. You start with Justice League, and then you go to all their, they have to split up for some reason. So you do all the solo movies, and then you come back after all their solo movies for Justice League 2 or whatever you call it.
But that's not what they did.
No.
And they kind of, and unlike Sony, who at some point just says, let's reboot it. DC doesn't want to do just a reboot, which is ironic for DC. They don't just want to do a reboot.
Well, I don't think even in the comics they don't want to do that anymore because they think they have that reputation, and I think now they see that's like, well, we don't want to be like people to think we're admitting failure.
Yeah, you know what their problem was, and this is honestly the exact problem with the DC cinematic universe, is they had a hit with Nolan, and rather than trying to build out a Nolan verse. And I think maybe when Superman, Man of Steel came out, they maybe were even thinking. Actually, did Superman Returns? Did that come out before? That was in the middle of the Nolan verse, didn't it? Superman Returns.
No. I think that came out. No, it was after. It might have been like a year after the last Nolan movie. I think.
Oh, it did. Oh, okay.
I think it was like right after, but yeah, it was after.
So that was
because I think that's another reason they didn't go with the Nolan verse, because I think Nolan even said he wasn't interested in building anything bigger. I think he just wanted to do his trilogy and get out.
Yeah, but the thing is that after he built the trilogy, they could still carry on the characters.
Yeah, but also I'm pretty sure that I think they said Christian Bale didn't want to do it without Nolan. He was out too, so it's like your director's gone, your Batman's gone, so it's like.
Yeah, but so who cares? That's called. You see, I don't know if you know this, but these are based on comic books in which the artists and writers leave all the time. So every couple of years, you get a completely different guy drawing the character, which means you have a completely different look for the character, and you have a completely different person writing the character.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how long. I don't know how recent or how long ago this DC wanted to copy Marvel with a unified universe, because. I think even when they made Man of Steel, I don't know if they were thinking, "Oh, this is going to be our first movie."
Well, they did have Wayne.
Yeah,
they did have Wayne. They did have Easter eggs throughout it, and that's the thing. It's like they wanted to hedge their bets, and that's always your mistake, is hedging your bets.
Yeah.
Whereas with Iron Man and Thor. And really even Hulk, the very end of Hulk, you have Tony Stark walk in, because there's and in the early credits, and I saw it because that was like the first Easter egg to say this is a connected cinematic universe. Is you saw all the blueprints going up about the anti-Hulk weapons, and you see the name Stark on it, and it's like, oh, look at that, and that was like first real big, this is going to be a connected universe.
Back in the day when our Easter egg was a guy walking in the room, because Iron Man 1, it was Nick Fury walking in the room, and then Hulk, it was Tony Stark walking into a bar. It sounds like a joke. Yeah. Tony Stark walks into a bar.
Yes. And I don't know why Ross drinks Midori. It's kind of a weird drink to me that he's drinking like this sweet melon liqueur. I mean, yes, it is green, so visually it works. I just don't see Ross as a Midori drinker. Although I think they could really play that up, like in the movies. Like, you don't drink. I always imagined like an Air Force general would drink whiskey. It's like, no, I like Midori. I like the melony taste. It's good.
He's evil. He's evil. He drinks Midori.
Yeah, well, because it's green.
Oh, that's
that's
some psychological stuff there.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, that's that. I mean, to me, that's the thing with the DC universe is not. They want to be connected.
They're playing catch up. They want to be where Marvel's at now, and you have to put that time and the story in.
It's like if someone was just like a successful businessman, or even just a moderately bad businessman and said, you know what, I should be in charge of the entire country, and then ran for president and won. I'm just not saying it's going to be a good presidency. So it's like DC can make an interconnected universe, but it might be subject to Russian hacking.
Well, I mean, I think a better oh god, I think a better example of the analogy we're trying to make is it's like somebody graduating from high school and then saying, give me my own Fortune 500 company to be in charge of. No, kid, you got to go out and work and build your empire. No one's going to hand it to you.
Yeah. Although Mark Zuckerberg is a dropout too, so
Well,
he's a college dropout, and he's a Harvard college dropout. So it's a very high end dropping out that he did. But yeah, well, but that's the .com American dream is, could we achieve our greatness with as little work possible involved? That's what we're hoping for. Oh, and you're froze on me again, Phil. Oh, I feel like Captain Cold came in and just took all your speed force. It's very sad and disturbing. So now I will talk as Phil reboots. It's moments like these we wish we had a call-in line. We do have a voicemail line, which is 38 Capes. I don't know what the area code is, but Phil will know that. He has that written down because Phil's prepared. So anyway, yeah. Man, I don't know what to say. Okay, so let us talk about Secret Empire for a minute. Actually, no, I want to talk about Superman for a minute because, like, 2 issues in, it has been the PSA Superman. Superman and his family are traveling the country, visiting historical sites, talking about the meaning of history and America, and it's like, Soups, I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to reconnect with some kind of all-American truth, justice, and the American way ideal. It's just not the time for that, It's not the time that's what you're going to be reconnecting with. You can't have we're all just people in disagreements, because yes, we are all just people in disagreements, but it comes down to who are you disagreeing with? And Phil's back.
And who are you talking to?
I'm talking to our audience, Phil.
See, this is why I'm like, why does he even need me? I swear, you could fill an hour by yourself. Not that I don't enjoy talking to you, but
no, I mean,
honestly,
I feel embarrassed if I'm just talking to myself, because then I'm just talking to myself. I do that.
Why? I wish I had that. I wish I had that ability. I mean, I'd be sitting here going, yes. I mean, no, you could sit here and do it. Yeah, well,
the problem is, Phil, is that I'm used to people not listening to me, so talking to myself is the only option I had. Yeah, well, I was talking about the last 2 issues of Superman and how, PSA Superman isn't working for me. It's like, I get the idea that, there's this history that we want to reference, and that's great. But at the same time, I'm like, this is boring. And on a political level, it's like, it's not the time for everyone's entitled to their own opinion politics, because you know what? When your opinion is, slavery's not that bad, or your opinion is, some people.
Wait, Superman didn't say that, did he?
No, but the thing is, what? Here's going to tell you: when you visit a Civil War battleground, and you stand up and say, "Hey, we're all just Americans who are fighting in a senseless war," maybe you should actually ask why that war didn't make sense. And actually, maybe the war actually made perfect sense if you were on the right side. If you were on the side that said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't own people." Although actually, in truth, what it was one group of people saying, we really, really want to own people, and we're afraid you're not going to let us own people anymore. And so we're going to go have a war, because it's not like the North wanted a war. The North was like, dude, we weren't going to make you not own people. It was very profitable for New York to own, for people in the South to own people. It was a very lucrative business. That wasn't anything anyone wanted. It was your classic supervillain move. It's this. It's the South was your classic supervillain making problems for themselves.
How do I put this without sounding too mean? You know how a a big part of our population isn't the brightest bulbs right now. Is that the secret? It's always been that
Well,
way.
here's what I'm going to tell you.
there's
The
there's
reality
there's
is,
people who don't want to rock the boat. There's people who don't want to think about the bad stuff that's happening. They just want to bury their head in the sand and be like, "Hey, it doesn't affect me. Why rock the boat?"
but here's what I'm going to tell you, Phil. Those people aren't the problem. The people who don't want to, the actual people who just say, "I don't want to rock the boat," don't want to
Yeah,
rock the boat in any direction.
true.
They're not gonna be like, "Oh, hey, I hate the idea of two boys kissing," or "I hate the idea of women having autonomy over their own bodies." People that don't want to rock the boat don't want to rock the boat in any. I'm a guy who doesn't like to rock the boat. Historically, conservatives were people who we don't really want to. It's like, okay, whatever. I need to get to work. I need to leave my house, go to a job I hate, and then get to come home to the house I live in. That is my day. I don't want to have to deal with whatever your problems are. I don't want to hear that people are oppressing you. I don't want to hear people have a right to oppress you. I want to go to my work and come home. And if you make me make a decision on this, I'm going to be very mad at all of you. And that's the problem, is that, when it comes to politics, there really are right and wrong answers. And the right and wrong answer is, you can get into subtlety. I'm not going to say you can't get into subtlety. You can get into very deep, complex questions about, gun control and the power of the government and the importance of the government in your life and all these kind of things. And whether or not you want the government to be the only person in charge of something. Do you really trust the government to do this? Although what I always say is, well, what's the alternative? If the alternative, because here's the thing, you have to trust people. And the government is just, the government, there's no difference between a government and a corporation. They're both just groups of people doing something for whatever reason that it is motivated for them. The advantage of governments doing things is that we're all stockholders in the government. You have to make an effort to be a stockholder in a corporation. So if you want to influence a corporation, you have to have enough money to be influential. In a government, you only have to have enough money to have a vote. And if you have a vote, you have influence. If you're a citizen, you have influence. Maybe not much, maybe only a tiny, tiny bit of influence. But I would say you have more influence as a voter and as a regular voter in politics than you do as merely a consumer of a product. Because the fact of the matter is that the fewer people who vote, the more powerful your votes become. So if you're a person who votes in America where people don't vote very much, you are actually an insanely powerful person. And every time you want to voice your opinion, you get to voice that opinion. And the problem is that there are too many people who like to vote who also have bad opinions about, the humanity of other people. But that's my opinion. What's yours, dear listeners? Do you have any other comic book or pop culture news you want to talk about tonight, Phil?
I don't think. I'll just throw out there. I've been reading Invincible. I started reading the Invincible comic by Robert Kirkman, creator of The Walking Dead. It's pretty good. It's about a teenage kid who starts developing his father's superpowers. His father's basically the Superman of this earth, and I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of you could see influences of Marvel and DC, like his father's like the Superman, and they have their own Justice League and stuff. But it's really interesting because I'm like the big two. It's like, you want to kill off this guy permanently, kill this one off. If you want to make this one, it's been evil the whole time, make that guy's been evil the whole time.
Well, yeah, it's your basic Watchmen concept, which is hey, if we just use pastiches, we can do whatever we want, which was a brilliant idea when they came up with it in the Avengers and Justice League crossover, where the Avengers met the Squadron Sinister and the Justice League went to Earth 2, or Earth whatever, where they met the evil Justice League. It was brilliant concepts that later artists steal and say, "Look how brilliant I am for stealing this." So do they have their Superman be a big jerk Superman, or is he actually a decent, cool Superman?
He seems cool. I don't want to give too much away, but he has a hidden agenda.
Mm, that's always an issue. You know, one of my favorite Superman stories, and you can look for it on This American Life, and it's all about the guy who dated Lois Lane after she broke up with Superman briefly. It's a just Google that, and there's a great. I mean, it's a short story, but they read it on This American Life, and it is well worth the read because what makes it so great isn't the guy's interactions with Superman. It's at the very end where he meets Clark Kent in a bar, and they both just sit down and hang out and have a great laugh about what a pretentious knob Superman is.
Ugh.
And you know, it's one of these moments where we as the audience get to understand things and maybe understand things a bit better from Superman's perspective about, you know, how much of a pain in the butt it must be to be a Superman and how much being a Superman might make you long to just spend time with the Lois Lane. And, the fantasy for Superman is to be a normal person. You know, when you think about what the actual, we always, as I said, if we all could escape from this reality, we'd all be superheroes. But to a superheroic reality of Superman, all he wants to do is go get a 9 to 5 at the Daily Planet, turn in his copy about cute kittens and theater reviews, maybe write a couple obits. That's his dream. 9 to 5 in a world without Lex Luthor's. In a world with that's the thing is like when you have superpowers, you can't do that. Because there's also superpowered villains.
Mhm.
You can't just be a dude. There was a thing about what would you do if you had superpowers, and my answer was I would probably just use heat vision to heat up hot pockets, because I don't live in a world. If I'm the only person with superpowers, it's like I could either be a fascistic dictator, or I could heat up hot pockets with heat vision,
Or make
and
money, or make money with it till your uncle's killed.
well, yeah, that's the thing. But even then, it's like this: if Spider-Man were the only person with superpowers, there would not be crime in New York City.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the only reason why there's crime in Gotham is because Batman's kind of a pathetic superhero. He's got
he has no powers, but I mean, most of his enemies are insane people too. So,
well, yeah, he's basically a rich guy who beats up on the mentally ill. We have established that he's not a nice person. But to me, what it is just this idea that these in a world with superheroics, in a world with superheroes, all anyone ever really wants is to be normal. Because what you want is what you can never have.
mm-hmm.
We want to be superheroes because we know we can never actually be superheroes. And the truth be told, from all of the comic books we've read, no superhero has a good life. None of them do. None of them wouldn't give for a minute to give it all up if they could just be normal in a normal world.
They all get beaten up and they all get beaten up, lose their money, bad stuff. Except Superman. Superman takes road trips.
Well, but the thing is that, when you think about it, every time you have a character lose their powers, they are briefly happy till a supervillain shows up. And think about every time Ben Grimm loses being the Thing, and then suddenly...
That's what I was about to say. Then he got to shoot him up with cosmic rays, Ben Grimm.
Yeah, well, but often he chooses to. He says,
yes.
I'll do it because we need a thing. We need someone who can fight this. And that's the crux of it, is that, these characters, they have an obligation to a world with super beings, and because they happen to be part of the group of super beings, they can never walk away from it. And they're envious of us for being able to walk away from it, even as we're envious of them for their power, It's like old Richard Corey, and on his yacht with his fancy parties, and then one warm summer night goes home and puts a bullet in his head, because he had all these things that everyone envied, but all he ever wanted was contentment. And contentment is, that's the thing, is money can buy you happiness, but it can never buy you contentment, because happiness is very easy to get. That's just, a chemical reaction, same as love. But contentment contentment with the universe in which you're in. That is essentially nirvana. That is what Buddhists work every day to try and understand. Can I be happy to just be? And if it was easy, everyone would be a Buddha. So that's enough of Superconnectivity this week, I think, Phil. We talked very little about comic books. We got a little bit of movies and TV in there, and that's good. And we talked philosophy and politics, and that's what makes. I think that's why our listener tunes in. Phil, if people would like to reach out to you, how can they do so?
If you want to get a hold of me personally, especially if you want to do an interview anywhere on the Capes of Lunatics podcast, you can email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com, and on Twitter, you can see it right there, @nightwingpdp. Follow the Capes and Lunatics on Facebook, Twitter, again down there @Capes Lunatics. And we have our voicemail for any show on the Capes and Lunatics, 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES.
614. I was trying to give that earlier, but I couldn't remember the area code. So 614-38-CAPES, kids. And we use Capes because you can do a thing on your phone where you can get that 9-digit keypad, and you'll notice there's little numbers on each or little letters on each number. Nice. That's what we're doing when we say, Pennsylvania 6-5000 or Klondike 5 and a number. Klondike 5. It's not a number. Unless you're calling information. 51212. Klondike 5. Okay, Phil. And of course, if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way, speaking of old-fashioned things like, Klondike 5, 1212, you can always write to me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's coming soon, kids! The agents are back, and they've brought the Kree. @Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEssessr. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for the quality. Thank you for connecting with us once again. Ladies and gentlemen, please connect with us again. Good night.